In 2008, I launched out onto my own in private practice. I had to make a decision at that time as to what kind of a phone plan I needed. By then I realized that whether I wanted one or not, a texting phone was going to have to be something I was going to have to buy and learn how to do. By then, cell phones had full keyboards that slid out, the ones that are now known as the dumb phones. Well, I bought one, and I was in the game. It didn't take me too long to figure out what the hype was all about. It became so much easier to schedule appointments when I could do it via text instead of voice calls. Today, in fact, only a small fraction of my scheduling is done via voice calls. It's mostly text. So now I was back to therapy, full-time, building a practice, seeing clients every day. I could devote my full attention to developing my therapy and my techniques and my style. I built my own website for the practice and began to familiarize myself with everything that had to do with electronic devices. The internet was the way of the future. There was no doubt about that. What became very clear to me was that sitting and talking with a client in therapy and handing them a paper worksheet to read and complete was quickly becoming old school. So I began putting more and more of my documents out on the internet where they could be accessed with a cell phone. We were still at the tail end of 3G technology, not yet to 4G. Someone could access the internet with a cell phone, but it was a bit slow and cumbersome. With 4G technology being introduced in the US in 2009 and the first iPad in 2010, large chunks of information could now be streamed to your cell phone or your notebook. And at that point, it was game on. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, so to speak, I was busy getting my practice off the ground. I didn't have a lot of money for marketing or advertising, so I took a very low-cost and practical route. Offer free presentations to anybody, any group, any size, any place. I quickly found out that there are a lot of organizations that welcome the opportunity to have someone come and talk to them for free. I had no trouble filling up my docket with speaking engagements. I would talk to any group about any topic they desired. The neat thing about the cognitive behavioral approach is that it can be applied to literally anything. I've spoken about stress, depression, weight loss, bullying, and even distracted driving. I worked up a basic presentation that I could tweak to any sort of topic anybody wanted. And I didn't want to be like any other speaker. So I decided to take a novel approach. My passion has always been understanding change from a neurobiological perspective, so that became my approach. Now, backing up just a little bit, in 2002, I was reading a Reader's Digest article about stress. The article itself was nothing really stellar, but one paragraph caught my attention. It was a reference to how stress occurs in the brain. Basically, the biological or neurobiological explanation of what stress was and what needed to occur in the brain to better handle stress. The article referenced a book titled Synaptic Self by Joseph Ledoux. I still have that copy of the Reader's Digest, and as I read it today, I still can't figure out exactly what piqued my interest, but I just had to have the book. Now, I had spent some time on the internet during my master's program, had some familiarity, but I'd never ordered anything on the internet. This book, Synaptic Self, represented my first purchase on the internet, Amazon.com. I purchased the book sight unseen, quite out of the ordinary for me, but I just felt like I had to have it. I received it several days later, and honestly, it was the most boring book I have ever read. Sorry, Joseph. But at the same time, I couldn't put it down. leaping off the pages was the neurobiological explanation for what I had experienced in my own journey, and it was called neuroplasticity. I'd never encountered the term before, but it explained everything. Everything I had done in my own brain, and everything I was going to attempt to get my clients to do. In the 6 years between 2002 and 2008, I read literally everything I could get my hands on that explained the process of neuroplasticity. Norman Doidge, The Brain that Changes Itself. Jeffrey Schwartz, The Mind and the Brain, Neuroplasticity and the Power of Mental Force. Joe Dispenza, Evolve Your Brain, The Science of Changing Your Mind. Shad Helmstetter, The Power of Neuroplasticity, What You Say When You Talk to Yourself. Those were a few, just to name a few. In the years since that serendipitous occurrence back in 2002, I've been researching, learning, reading, writing, and presenting information about the brain. I developed a presentation which I call the Neurobiology of Change. This presentation has kind of become the cornerstone of my technique. I believe that a major key to understanding the process of change is to have a firm grasp on the neurobiological underpinning of all of it. If you'd like to view this presentation, please visit my website, takechargecounseling.org. There's a copy out there. For as long as I can remember, I've been one of those people who likes to know how stuff works. Even to this day, those kind of TV shows fascinate me. And all throughout my master's program, I was learning what did work and what didn't, but I wanted to know why it worked. I was constantly left with the feeling that what went on in the brain was a mystery. And that's probably because it was a mystery for a long time. As a matter of fact, for the first 100 or so years of neuroscience, the belief about neuroplasticity was that it was a myth. Neuroscientists knew, of course, about the building of neural circuits from birth to child or birth to adulthood. But most experts agreed that by the time we reached early adulthood, the brain was pretty well fixed. All the migrating of neurons that was going to take place was over with, and the brain was pretty much going to stay that way for the duration of one's life. This seemed to be the case, but there was one perplexing problem with that thinking. Stroke patients, or persons with other types of damaged or missing brain tissue, often regained at least partial use of the affected body part or limb. The more one worked that affected body part or limb, the more function one could expect to regain. Something was happening to regenerate neurons or recruit existing neurons to take over for damaged or missing neurons. That seemed to suggest that something neuroplastic-like was happening in the brain. But old beliefs die hard, and therefore the concept of neuroplasticity remained a myth. That is, until the advent of computer-aided scanning, specifically functional magnetic resonance, or fMRI. This came on the scene in 1991, and many believe that the development of it has changed the world. I'm in that camp. If you would like to see just how far we've come in the world of imaging neural activity, check out this link and watch a video of live neurons connecting and pruning. Pretty cool stuff. I also figured that I couldn't be the only one who wanted to know why or how things worked. So the more I learned about the brain, the more I incorporated this information into my presentations and ultimately into the way I do therapy. This became my platform, my signature, if you will, explaining how change occurs at the neurobiological level. I quickly found out that no, I'm not the only one. In fact, I would have to say that nearly 100% of folks that I show these presentations to are captivated and fascinated by the information. It clearly explains how the brain works and doesn't work, and literally answers the questions, why do I keep doing the things I don't want to do, or keep not doing the things that I do want to do, even when I know better? My marketing plan worked to perfection. Within 3 short years, I had a thriving practice and a full caseload. I knew I was onto something big. People responded very favorably to being shown how the brain really works, and more importantly, seeing exactly what it takes to change. I have aptly named this presentation the NEURO-BIOLOGY of Change, or capital N, capital B with an equilateral triangle for short. Now, you may be wondering what the significance is of this equilateral triangle. It's also in the acronym CAVP. What's it all about? Well, the Greek letter delta is an equilateral triangle, and it's commonly used in subjects of science, mathematics, and medicine as an abbreviation for change. That's because delta is the initial letter of the word DIAPHORA, which means difference. It's a meaningful symbol to me because my passion is making change happen and making a difference. The next few chapters will explore my neurobiology of change. So sit back,